My name is Nestor Castro. I'm a professor of anthropology at the University of the Philippines Diliman, and I'm part of the Prosper group on sustainable development goals, localization of the SDGs. So there are various modalities on how community engagement programs are being implemented at the university, and these are just some of them. First is the National Service Training Program, which is a Philippine law. The second is Padayon UP. I'll discuss it later. A volunteer program, Ugnayan ng Pahinungod, implementation of the extension load credit, and of course, activities of the Vice Chancellor for Community Affairs. Of course, I was the Vice Chancellor for Community Affairs until 2 years ago. There are other community engagement programs per department, per institute, per college that are not captured in this presentation. And this is one of the limitations. So this is why I appreciate very much the toolbox, because it captures everything. So first, the National Service Training Program, or NSTP. The NSTP has been enacted into law way back in 2001. So it's a Philippine government law that requires all college students in the country to take up 2 semesters of this course. And there are 3 options that they may take: the Civic Welfare Training Service, or CWTS, the Literacy Training Service, or LTS, and Military Service, or Reserve Officers Training Corps. Now, most students of UP take up option 1, which is the Civic Welfare Training Service. And I would like to focus on that more than the 2 other components. So although this law is being applied in all universities in the Philippines, in the University of the Philippines Diliman, this is how we interpreted NSTP. So it is serving our people, building our nation. It assumes that students have the innate potential, which UP, through its academic and student support programs, has the obligation to develop. Students go through the process of self-awareness, which enables them to take a realistic view of themselves in relation to others, such as family, friends, and their country. So as I said, it's 2 semesters. For the first semester, it focuses on citizenship and volunteerism, and the second semester on career exploration and development. And this is when students are deployed into communities or agencies, institutions, depending on their particular plans. So these are the policies of UP Diliman. CWTS, or the Civic Welfare Training Service, is to be implemented by college. So it's decentralized. Students should be at least of sophomore standing to take up this course. For the entire university, that is Diliman, there is an NSTP committee that performs coordinative functions. So these are the considerations in selecting the type of service that students may undertake. First is how the activity enhances the learning experience. In the toolbox, this is mentioned as a service learning option. How the activity might conflict with or disrupt other regular school-based activities. So for example, some students would do their service only during weekends or during the summer period or during the semestral break. So it depends on the students and their respective faculty in charge. Ethical considerations should be considered too. Safety and welfare of communities, students, and faculty, and as well as financial costs in doing this type of activities. These are some of the necessary preparations in undertaking service to communities via NSTP. First is preparing parents and guardians. So these students are about 17 years old to 18 years old. Preparing students, preparing the community, and notifying university officials. So here are how projects and activities are identified. Generally, the projects or activities are identified by the students themselves with the approval of the faculty. So while it is a mandatory course, the type of projects that will be undertaken by students is decided by students themselves. And of course, it should be a project that is acceptable to the host community. It is not just a project that the students thought would be acceptable, but they have to link up with the potential community in order to see whether that type of project is acceptable or not. Third, there would be certain instances when the project or activity should conform with the university's thrusts in a given period. For example, there was a time that in UP Diliman, these activities should be in line with the Quezon City project of the university. Quezon City is the city where the university is located. And so it should cater to the thrusts of this city. So here are some examples of NSTP projects. This is not an exhaustive list, and they mainly come from my home college, which is in the social sciences, so you could understand where it's coming from. So such as community-based tutorial sessions for pupils. These are pupils not enrolled in the university, but found in the communities. So based on the weaknesses of the pupils, if they're poor in math or in English or in science, that is where the tutorial sessions are focused on. In-school tutorial sessions for students, because there are certain schools that are within the university's property or adjacent to the university's property, but not part of the University of the Philippines. I'll explain that later. Soap making training for women in the community as a livelihood project. House construction activities. These are housing projects for poor people in poverty-stricken communities. Teaching indigenous dances to out-of-school youth. Solid waste management in communities. Storytelling sessions for children cancer patients. Development of a community map and database. Development of a village website. Firefighting equipment, soliciting funds for the purchase of firefighting equipment for the community. Leisure activities for the elderly. Establishment of a community library. Song, dances, and games for the youth. Cooking and food processing lessons for community members, among others. There are many, many other types of programs. So this is a picture of some of my former students constructing houses. So you see the houses at the back. Students volunteered in constructing this low-cost housing. So the one in front is a history student wearing short pants. So, and the others are other social science students. Here are some problem areas in the implementation of the program. First is security concerns. When they are deployed to a particular community, they may experience certain threats from within the community or from outside forces from the community. Many students of the University of the Philippines are suspected to be student activists by the Philippine state, and therefore they are harassed by military men and policemen. Financial and logistical constraints, legal liabilities. What if there are problems that they encounter? Is the university legally liable, or it's left to the students or their parents? Administrative constraints, especially for the faculty member in charge. How could he or she monitor all of this, given that they are deployed in different areas? And of course, it's a burden on the instructors. So for example, for monitoring activities, he or she would have to visit them or text them via mobile phones to find out how they are. And of course, informant and community fatigue. So because some communities are very near the university, so usually students would prefer to go there, but community members are already very fatigued because, of course, they would act as hosts to the students also. Another program, so this time separate from the NSTP, the University of the Philippines system has a public service office. So this is officially being done by the university. This office coordinates and mobilizes the resources of the university to respond promptly and efficiently, should be efficiently, to the demands of public service and develop relevant networking and support from the different publics of the university. So by publics here, we mean the community as referred to in the toolbox, or stakeholders outside of the university. So for example, in the case of the COVID-19 pandemic, the university is asked to do its share in contributing to efforts in addressing this problem. And I'll show that in a later slide. Another office of the university is the Ugnayan ng Pahinungod. It's an institutional volunteer service program of the university. So while NSTP is required and mandated, the Public Service Office is an official office of the university. But the Ugnayan ng Pahinungod acts on a voluntary basis. So there may be students or faculty members who for a specific period of time may volunteer to be deployed in certain communities to undertake certain programs, such as a volunteer teacher in far-flung communities where there are very few available teachers. Another type of program is the Committee on Psychosocial Emergency Services. So contributing to psychosocial needs of particular communities, especially in times of disaster. So if a certain community experienced a typhoon, flooding, storm surge, or earthquake, then professors and students, mostly coming from the Department of Psychology, are deployed to such communities. Another type of track that the university takes in giving service as part of the third mandate of the university. So in the University of the Philippines, we talk about the three mandates of teaching, research, and extension. So in the past, faculty members were just given teaching credits as well as research credits. But about 3 to 2 years ago, we now have extension load credits of up to 3 units per semester for a faculty members who apply to have such type of activity. The faculty member himself or herself proposes the type of extension work that he or she likes to undertake, and where he or she has the choice on where she would want to do it. So for example, in my department, so there may be faculty members who would want to render service as museum extension workers in community museums outside of the university. The credit load is endorsed by the respective department, endorsed by the college, and all the way to the vice chancellor for research and development. So this is a way where faculty members do their share. So for example, if faculty members teach 12 units a semester, they could just teach 9 units, and the 3 units come from the service that they contribute to certain communities. Then lastly, of course, in the University of the Philippines Diliman, because UP is a system and there would be constituent universities scattered in the archipelago, but in UP Diliman, where I am affiliated, so there is an office of the Vice Chancellor for Community Affairs, and of course it has many functions, but 3 offices under the Vice Chancellor cater to community members. So they are stakeholders who come from outside the university, such as the Office of Community Relations, the Diliman Environmental Management Office, and the University Health Service. So UP Diliman is quite unique because even within the property of the university, there are 3 villages whose members are not connected with the university. So they are informal settlers from the point of view of the university. So these are thousands of household members within the property of the university. And it is the Office of Community Relations that undertakes activities in these types of communities, such as improving their sewage system, widening their roads, improving housing, having access to water and electricity, etc. Aside from those 3 communities, there would be 5 other communities at the buffer of the university's property, which the Office of Community Relations also assists. The other one is the DEMO, or Diliman Environmental Management Office, so which operates a materials recovery facility within the university, but this facility is also used by community members outside of the university. The third is the University Health Service, which caters not just to faculty, students, and non-teaching staff, but also to community members practically to any outsider as long as these medical procedures are of emergency nature. If they are not of emergency nature, then the University Health Service refers them to other government hospitals outside of the university. Of course, I did not count in these 5 modalities other types of activities that are being undertaken by individuals, by departments, by institutes, and by colleges that are already embedded within their own academic programs. For example, there are many courses that would undertake field schools. Anthropology has a field school, archaeology has a field school, marine science has a field school, and they are deployed to communities outside of the university. And of course, it is not just an opportunity where students learn from the community, but also the students render service based on the needs of particular communities. These different departments and colleges undertake memorandum of agreements with these communities depending on what are the needs of particular communities. Lastly, these are some examples of the university's responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. The Philippine General Hospital, this is a part of the university, and this is one of the hospitals in the country that caters to COVID-19 patients. So COVID-19 patients are brought there and treated there. Second is the establishment of the University of the Philippines COVID-19 Pandemic Response Team that acts on specific requests coming from different stakeholders, as well as those that this pandemic response team has identified as what stakeholders would need in these particular times. There is the establishment of a web portal to provide the public with vital information and tools to fight COVID-19, especially at a time when stakeholders are very vulnerable to fake news about vaccines, about COVID-19. So this web portal is very important. A fourth initiative is partnering with Google in developing a COVID-19 online dictionary, which is for laymen, so that laymen understand what is a pandemic, what is a vaccine, what is social distancing, etc., etc. Another initiative from the Institute of Chemistry, so it's a specific institute, they produced sanitizers from their own department, as well as, I failed to write it down, their own COVID-19 testing instruments, because testing instruments are very expensive. So this institute has developed its own testing instruments. And another example is free psychosocial health counseling for not just to students, not just to faculty, but practically everyone who are facing these type of needs in the time of COVID-19. And there is an online counseling portal that the public may use during these times. So I think that's my last slide, and let me stop sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nestor.